Okay, we're here to talk about Silo, Apple TV, Season 3, Episode 3, titled A Dark Web, written by Arik Avelino and directed by Michael Dinner. Daniel attends a memorial service for Charlotte's co-pilot, where the pilot's father tells Daniel he has been told not to look into his son's death, but that there might be recordings of what happened somewhere out on the internet. Helen and Daniel track down Steve, who has recordings of the Iran mission that were located on the dark web, so they try to meet with him to get that information. They then learn of a recording of what happened to Charlotte's plane specifically, and it apparently contains some kind of pretty horrific information. When they go back later to try to get the tape, they find his place destroyed and that tape missing. In the silo, Juliet continues to spit out her pills and tells Jerry that she needs some alone time and goes out for a walk. She sends a note to Shirley asking if she can get help for finding where Lucas Kyle is. And while out, she first confronts Kathleen about Lucas's whereabouts, but gets no information because everyone thinks he is dead. Camille and the algorithm follow Juliet's day from afar to try to come up with a solution to keep everything under control so they don't have to release the vitamin D into the water because the silo is very dangerously close to the safeguard. Juliet shows up at the school of Robert and Camille's son, and Robert tells her never to come near them again. At home, Robert is desperate for them to do something as a family, but Camille is too focused on her work as head of IT. But she does end up telling Robert about the vitamin D plan. When Juliet finally talks with Shirley and Knox, she decides to ignore their warning and go down straight into the mines. While there, the algorithm encourages Camille to take action in case Lucas Kyle is alive. Camille fumigates the mines, which forces Kyle out of hiding and on the run, but it also kills several people, including Orla Kent, and injures Juliet. Afterwards, Camille commits to killing Juliet to save the silo. I'm going to admit that for the first time this season, now 3 episodes in, so almost a third of the way through the season, um, my excitement or interest in this Silo storyline dipped a little bit. I'm
Interesting.
wondering now if this season is going to be just a cat and mouse. We're just trying to get Camille and Juliet to avoid a confrontation, or they're trying to escape one another. I'm not convinced. Again, having not read ahead, I'm not convinced that this is a lot to do with something integral to the plot. And so I may be on an island with that, but just sort of how I felt after this third episode.
That's interesting. Yeah, let's start there because in some ways I felt like, oh, do I almost have to do a mea culpa for things I was saying last week, worried about the pacing? Because if it seemed like, oh, well, now a lot's happening really quickly. But you know what, Ryan, you're probably right to remind me, don't get too excited, Cameron. It's probably still going to take the whole season for this to resolve. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it should, though. It really doesn't feel like it should. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I was fairly hooked in this episode because it's just like big bang boom, stuff's happening. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, I kind of thought it was going to take way longer for Juliet to move in this direction of looking into things and actually find out anything. So the
Yeah.
fact that here it was just like, okay, well, the next day after last episode, she spits out her pills again and she tells Jerry, oh, you know how you were saying yesterday, you'd like let me, give me some space. How about that? Let's have some space,
Yeah.
And of course, other people are watching her anyway, but the fact that she just proceeds kind of so quickly in terms of her investigation. I think I also I enjoy what they're doing with Juliet at a character level this
Mm.
season, which is interesting because um, I don't know how much we might have talked about this when we're covering season two, but I definitely had mixed feelings about Juliet in season one, and I can't recall now how much they lingered into season two. And like maybe I still do to some degree, but I feel like I know her now. And what's kind of interesting is how this kind of amnesiac Juliet feels
Mm.
like the same character, but she's not the same character insofar as she doesn't like remember stuff, obviously, but that these aspects of her character that we've gotten to know are coming out anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like stubbornly deciding to jump down through the
Yeah.
gap or whatever, even though everyone's told her it's not safe to do so. And so, "Oh, screw it, I'm doing it anyway because I'm Juliet." You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I would certainly agree that she is playing that part well, and she's given sort of an interesting plate of things to work with in the season. I do think she's playing it well. It feels to me like I'll put it this way. To your point, I don't think in episode 4 or 5 we're going to see the vitamin D go in the water. I don't think we're going to see a safeguard be an issue. I don't think we're going to get Lucas Kyle do an information dump. And so these characters are kind of just dance around each other for the majority of the season. And to your point, and then we'll resolve it in the last step of the season. I guess maybe my question is, what is it? What are we trying to resolve? That she knows what's happening out there. She knows about the silos and needs to desperately tell the rest of the people there that information. I guess that's where we're pointed, right?
Yeah, I would think. Got to do what we got to disable the safeguard.
Yep.
That's the end game. And like, look, I mean, I would largely expect that to happen. I mean, again, I don't generally think the point of watching TV is to try to play the game of guessing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to see many other narrative directions. Like this is even why I put on my show sheet, how will Juliet survive? Not
Yeah.
will she? Like,
Yeah.
I would be stunned if they decide to kill off the main character next week.
Exactly.
I mean, sure that this show kind of did it at the beginning where the main characters in episode 1 and 2 were not the main character moving forward, but then I think the shift to Juliet as our protagonist, I feel like that's going to hold. Like I have no idea
Yeah.
what yeah, you could kill off Bernard, but I don't Juliet's not going to die. But
Yeah.
then to tie this into what you were saying, I guess I'm withholding judgment until we watch further. I get
Yeah.
your worry entirely because I could see it going in precisely that way. And I guess in some ways, though, I let this episode set me up for possible disappointment again about the pacing because I wasn't feeling that on my own really until you brought it up. And now I'm thinking about it. So that would be the first question, right? Because look, in terms of the narrative, throughout this episode, Juliet goes through the investigation, and there's some interesting
Hmm.
stuff that comes to light there in terms of how she pieces together the idea that, oh, well, Lucas is probably hiding in the mines. He was in the mines before. No one's going to look
Yeah.
for him there. The mines is viewed as like, ninth circle of hell kind of territory.
Yeah.
Anyway, and it's also interesting to put what Camille puts together about the idea that, oh, well, Lucas knows about other silos. So I kind of like how this stuff's coming together. If Lucas was in the
Hmm.
mines trying to, I don't know what, actually like trying to get a tunnel to connect to a tunnel
Yeah.
from another silo or something. Hopefully find out more about that. But anyway, with this all coming to a head at the end, where Camille has them spray the rat poison and all of that. Poor Orla is dead, apparently. We'll talk about Orla more here in a moment. But Juliet's not in good shape.
Right.
Lucas seems to have escaped into the wind again. Good for him. But like what we see at the very end of the episode is basically Juliet confined to her bed and not even really conscious. And her nurse has access to her. I think that nurse is named Anna or something. I have to double check
Hmm.
my notes.
Hmm.
And so does the head of security, the Raiders or whatever, whose name I think her name's Emerson. I should make more notes on her sheet about some of the stuff sometimes. It's in my other notes I can find. But anyway, and then they say, oh well, and of course Mrs. Sims, Camille, right?
Yeah.
So you put that together with Camille's conversation with the algorithm, which has been, and look, I know I'm talking a lot before I throw it back to you. I will eventually. Sorry, but like I do have to hand it to you, Ryan. You were right in terms of our conversation last week about the vitamin D plus. About like what the plan was there. It's not like necessarily going to happen, but anyway, Camille doesn't want to do that, and we'll talk about that more later in a moment. Anyway, if I can manage to wrap up this point without rambling too long, the point is the algorithm's like, oh well, now we have an opportunity to get rid of Juliet. And by the very end of the episode, Camille says, like, all right, you're right. I'm going to save the lives of everyone else. I'm going to avoid wiping the memories of, well,
Yeah.
not just 9,900 people, but most importantly, Robert and my son Anthony. And that's where we end, right? And like, so
Yeah.
given that situation, this is why my question is, how will Juliet survive? Because I presume that she will. What do you think?
Yeah. She will, you would imagine in an easier way recover from the fumigation. That doesn't seem like to be much the issue. But now the issue is how does she survive long term if Camille does have this intention to eliminate her in order to save her family and save the silo, save the safeguard from happening. I would throw. I almost had a pause on that conversation between Camille and the algorithm at the end because do you believe that Camille is going or will actually go try and kill her? Because why would they have this conversation right before about you were selected because you're such a good liar? Well, is that Camille being such a good liar that she's trying to pacify that thing for now? But then we talk about how much she admired her. What do you think her real intentions are with Juliet? She's clearly, you're right. She's not going to go kill her in the next episode. So whether she wants to or not, what do you think are her intentions?
Okay, so that's an interesting possibility. Yeah, and you're putting a point on my question in another way, right? Which is the way that the episode concludes, it feels like Camille saying, all right, I'm going to go smother her with a pillow right now.
Yeah,
And like with the situation, the state Juliet's in, I think she could.
yeah,
Or even like she doesn't even have to do it herself. You know what I mean? She'd be like, hey, Nurse
yeah,
Anna, smother Juliet with a pillow. And I'd be like,
yeah,
okay, ma'am. You know? Um, so presuming that's not going to happen, I guess that is one possibility we should think about that Camille is prevaricating a little bit in that conversation with the algorithm, and that she's actually going to what? I mean, go to Juliet and have a conversation with her, where
yeah.
through that conversation it comes out that Juliet knows how to turn off the safeguard, that Juliet's remembered that now by this point.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be
yeah, I
that would
guess
be a
that's a
leap, I
possibility.
think. Yeah,
Yeah, that feels
it
almost a
feels
little
it feels
too.
to jump to that, to jump to the thing she's getting all these we've talked about this last time, all these little pings and flashbacks and bursts of memory. She's got nothing about the safeguard and nothing about 17 and nothing about Solo. To conveniently have it come up in a conversation with Camille, maybe it's because she says something about a safeguard. That could be, but we'd have to. That would be the reason why she wouldn't kill her, I think, if she goes to do so.
Yeah, so I agree. That would feel almost a little bit too direct or too much of a jump immediately. So like maybe that'll happen later. Maybe that'll happen in episode 9 or 10. And in the meantime, it will be like Billings or someone busts her out because he's somehow gotten wind of how there's a plan to kill her or something like that. And she goes and hides with the outsiders and learns more information or whatever, and then maybe that does give us the situation where your worry comes to fruition that for the next 6 episodes are just kind of like dicking around in back rooms talking or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could go there. I don't anticipate that will happen. I anticipate that there will be some pretty intensive things that happen in terms of either changing allegiances. I'm thinking as we're talking here about maybe the point of talking about how good a liar Camille is that she does go and has something happen with Juliet. She flips in some way, but now she has to keep lying to the algorithm about what she's doing or why she's not killing Juliet and all of that. And so you're sort of hidden motives or hidden intentions there. So I think
Yeah.
as long as we sort of keep the dynamic moving towards you're not really sure who's on what side, who's doing what, who's in in what camp. We got all these different groups of people, which I do find compelling, right? The outsiders, the people on Camille's side, Juliet's um, public facing and in the shadow, people that support her. So there's kind of some interesting dynamics there. I do hope that stuff continues.
Yeah. Now I want to put a point on something you just put me in mind of, and I don't know if I'd quite thought it through even for myself before right now. But thinking about the algorithm, it does seem, these scenes where, it's talking with Camille and everything, they're not my favorite scenes in the show by any means. I mean,
No.
that's part of why I hadn't thought about this before. But one thing I think we could glean from that is it does seem like the algorithm, however omniscient it is, it's not. Like that the algorithm doesn't actually know what's going on out in the silo. It needs Camille to tell her. I'm
Yes.
sorry, it needs
Yes.
Camille to tell it at least in a meaningful way. Like it's certainly got some information, right?
Yeah.
But like, why are they even having these conversations? There's an implication that the algorithm needs that information from Camille, which is interesting because if you're thinking about this question of who set up the silos and everything in the background about why, where look, cards on the table. My bigger question is not why did they make the silos? The question is why all these rules and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so like, how does that? how does that feed in? And one possibility I've played with over these seasons of Silo is that it's all some kind of social experiment or something like
Mm.
that. And that could be an explanation, maybe. Anyway, to tie back to what you were saying, I think, yeah, there is that space for some possibility that eventually, at least, Camille does take Juliet's side
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like I think it could track with the character because her primary motivation is to, keep everyone in the silo from being killed, and in particular her family. It's
Yeah. And
not
so
like,
if
you know,
Camille's motivations are, if she has options of let's keep finding ways to prevent safeguard from happening or completely disable the safeguard altogether, well, I'll choose that option so that there's not even this possibility anymore. Whatever you don't want to do, algorithm, you don't have the option anymore.
yeah. So that would make some sense to me if we ultimately go in that direction, but I don't expect it immediately. We'll see.
Yeah.
Part of me really does hope that actually the pacing is going to be like faster this season than I expect, and that could be fun. But yeah, I kind of expect it to be slower as it has been in previous seasons. Talking about the algorithm, one thing that occurred to me here with the safeguard and everything else, thinking back to season two and Silo 17, and I don't remember if hey, I don't remember if I forgot something, right? Um, but when we saw Silo 17, like Solo told her they disabled the safeguard. We got that information.
Mhm.
But did we get anything about what happened to the algorithm in Silo 17? I just found myself thinking about this because, in particular, maybe Solo's been spending all this time alone. You'd kind of think that maybe if he could have a computer buddy, he'd be talking to it. But we don't see that, I don't think, as I recall.
Yeah. On one hand, I have to say a little bit silent about this because I think there are some things that I don't know, but there's something I can speculate based on what, I've
Mm.
consumed the second book about this question. But not knowing completely, my speculation is, well, maybe once the safeguard has been initiated, there's an assumption by the algorithm or by the computer that things are wiped out and it's no longer needed. And so it's a sort of self shutdown or something. But we do know that the safeguard was enacted in 17, and so it's no longer, or thinks it's no longer needed. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, that's the best I've got too. Something along those lines. Either that or because the rebellion was successful and, quote, everyone went outside,
Yeah, yeah,
that it just doesn't care to pay attention to the strength, the few survivors, or maybe somehow
yeah,
doesn't even know about them or something. That's the best
yeah.
guess I've got, but it was a question I thought was worth mentioning, at least as it occurred to me as I'm wondering about what is all going on and why and the details and so on. But okay, so sticking to the silo for a moment before we go to the before time
Hmm.
stuff. What else do we have here? You mentioned, okay, the Pez dispenser makes an appearance, right? Sims'
Yeah, we've
son
now
has
moved into this is Chekhov's pet dispenser at this point. I mean, this clearly has a role into play somehow, some way. We've now seen it or had it referenced in about four straight episodes.
yeah, I wonder, although, I mean, I won't be terribly angry, I guess, if it ends up being more what post-structuralists might call a floating signifier,
Okay.
like that it has no, this would be, sorry, this would be like a signifier without a signified, as it were. Like maybe it
Yeah.
doesn't actually refer to anything. Maybe it doesn't actually really have any deeper meaning. It's just kind of
Yeah.
there as a it where I mean it does in some way signify the connection to the before times or whatever, but maybe it has no deeper meaning. That's a
Yeah.
possibility. But I'm definitely curious if it does somehow. Not even necessarily have a deeper meaning, but does it connect up to more things ultimately? Or
Yeah.
even just in narrative terms, how does it get in there? Because if that's the same one that Daniel gave to Helen, what's the implication there? Is the implication that Helen ends up in Silo 18 originally, or something like that?
Yeah.
We'll see. The other big thing I want to be sure to talk about is the stuff with Orla. It continues to feel almost in the background, but it's definitely there and has been in the previous episodes as well. Billings, Paul, is
Yeah.
the sheriff, and he's looking into her disappearance in this episode. He learns that. her boyfriend, so like not only did she become the shadow for supply
Hmm.
when the daughter of the mining guy had been, but she also stole that woman's boyfriend. Did you catch all this?
Yeah, that was I thought that was a little convoluted, but I generally think that's what I picked up on, and yeah, and that Billings is involved in this as well. That I think that's also the implication. Do I have that wrong, or who's the other person involved in this situation?
I'm not sure what you mean about involved. I wanted to throw in, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't have said stole. Like everyone's free, it's
Yeah,
like,
that's true. It seemed like there was
oh,
a third party there that I'm maybe I'm misremembering exactly what happened here, but Billings was finds her dead, is quite distraught about that. But was there another relationship that Orla had? I might be remembering a different thing happening here, but I don't quite know exactly where that part was going, especially as we just saw her dead shortly thereafter, or presumably dead.
yeah, I mean, we saw some stuff with her family. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
what you're thinking
it may have
of.
been it. It was, I mean, admittedly, did not go and sort of try to decipher what all those relationships were, so it may have been something to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that that is. I mean, her family just feels like side character type
Yeah,
stuff. I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe they'll end up mattering more. Maybe her sister will end up mattering more, for example. But at this point, like, if she has a name, I haven't made a note of it. Um, but Orla herself, I did make a note of her boyfriend's name, which again, it's fine. I can look at my notes elsewhere, but maybe, he might become relevant later. I'm presuming some
yeah,
investigation will proceed here, and I wonder what it will connect up to. Now, I mean, of course, this is also presuming that they don't put the drugs in the water supply to erase everyone's memory. But
yeah,
I am presuming that, right? It's like I'm making two big presumptions as we move forward. One,
yeah.
Juliet will not die. And two, they're not going to erase the memories of everyone in the silo because I just don't know how the story moves forward if they do those things, right?
I think those are safe. I think those are safe.
Yeah. So what's going on with Orla, right? My previous question I mentioned on the podcast last week, she says she's got some kind of suspicion about how someone is stealing stuff from critical supply. At least I think that's what she's saying in that scene. She
Yes.
uses the pronoun she, don't know who she refers to. Now, apparently she was in the mines, Orla was in the mines when they released the rat poison, whatever. Why was she in the mines? We don't know that really.
Yeah.
But I could guess that it's following up on the hunch that she had before, or did something happen in the middle here? Did someone take her hostage in some way and kind of kidnap her, and was holding her in the mines?
I think we
Um,
could benefit from, talking about what else could we do beyond just the Camille and Juliet dance. We could benefit from some time in that space. Lucas, Orla, what's happening there? Why? What is Lucas trying to accomplish? More than just him telling us at some point. I think it would be nice to spend some time there. Although I don't know if we missed that, other than we could have to do it in some kind of flashback.
yeah, I think we probably will, though. Maybe there'll be
Yeah.
flashbacks to what Orla was doing in the mines, what Lucas has been doing in the mines. Regardless, I do think they've set it up to where this is going to be a relatively significant element of the plot as we move
Hmm.
forward. It's been more in the background, but I think it's going to matter, and so I wanted to be sure to talk about it. And I don't know beyond just pure speculation based on the relationships they've mentioned that, oh, well, maybe it has to do with some kind of revenge or whatever being taken by I think the guy's named Harwood or something, and his
Yeah. Yeah.
daughter. And what were the machinations behind that in the first place that led to Orla becoming the Shadow?
Yeah.
Um, so I expect they will mine that
Nice.
for further plot going forward. I do want to say one more thing about the mines, which I know that we have some more stuff to talk about, and we don't want to run too long. But just to note as a question, I found myself thinking, why are they mining? What are they mining?
Yeah.
And more broadly, you got me thinking about the sustainability of the silos, which you would imagine you'd want to make these things self-sufficient. And I realized I wasn't sure if the show ever really established that
I
well
thought that
or
just
any
that
level
like
of detail.
down deep, below the deep down, whatever the level is more just like machinery or infrastructure or things that keep the silos stable. That there wasn't, yeah, that there's not really been an explanation of what exactly would be the purpose of doing that or why it's happening or is it happening on a regular basis, or what, how Lucas Kyle is able to involve himself in that. I just don't know that we have any of that yet.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, you get sent to the mines as punishment. We kind of know that, but are they
Yeah.
actually, that was my question more was, are they actually mining something that matters, or is it just kind of like, punishing people to dig a hole until they die? You know what I mean? Is that the point?
Yeah.
But it got me wondering, maybe also because the mentions of vitamin D, we know the vitamin D plus is, or at least the plus is the memory suppressor drug. But with the mention of vitamin D, it got me thinking like, oh, well, that makes sense. You can't go out and get sunshine. So yeah, they would need vitamin D. But then I started wondering like, where are they getting vitamin D?
Yes, yeah, that's true. Just digging it out of the
And
ground.
it's just like, is there an organic chemistry lab somewhere in the silo we haven't been to yet? Um, I don't know. I don't know if I did wonder if they address that more in the books. And if they do, I don't think it'd be a spoiler if you want to tell me they do, but because it would make sense to me if it would be like the boring page of Tolkien kind of stuff where they explain, um, you know, the sustainability of the silos, but maybe it's not there either, and we just have to
I
accept
am
it.
not recalling it from the most recent book. I'm not recalling anything about what happens in any sort of mine situation.
Well, no, yeah, it's just the minds with the whole thing. I don't know. I'm just you think like logically, logistically, it should be that's how it needs to be self-sufficient. They're going to live there for hundreds of years. You know what I mean? You're not bringing in imported goods.
Yeah,
So where are they getting all the stuff that they need? And the vitamin D stood out to me, but potentially there are other things. We know they're growing food and stuff like that, but
yeah,
anyway. Just to note that question. I think okay, let's go to the before times,
yeah.
which I very much enjoyed this part of the episode. There's definitely some stuff to talk through, but maybe it's relatively quick ultimately because it boils down to, I think, in this episode, primarily the flight recording
Yeah.
and Camille. I'm sorry, not Camille, Daniel and Helen. I don't know, names sound vaguely similar, right? Uh, Daniel and Helen going to see this guy whose name is probably not Steve in
Right.
order to hear the flight recording, and that's kind of the gist of it. There's maybe a couple other things in the margin, but land over to you. Thoughts about what's going on here in this timeline?
Yeah, yeah, I just thought this was a very straightforward, almost just like a, mini breaks for what was happening in the silo. Daniel goes to this memorial service, learns there might be recordings because they were able to be captured because of the fact that the technology was replaced by decades old communication devices. And so because it might have been captured, he enlists Helen's help. They're able to find it. This guy, Steve, who's, some guy doesn't want to be on the grid, but found this stuff on the dark web, has it. Um, Somebody else clearly wants it as well, which is why when they go back to get it, his place is wrecked. So yeah, just very much a with perhaps two distinct questions we need to talk about. A pretty straightforward, mission. We're going from A to B, and they solve it, but then they've lost the thing that they're looking for. So yeah, not too much other detail beyond that, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of questions here. Let's start with the question about what's on the recording because I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but as I was watching this, I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't play it for us.
I agree.
Now I have a guess here, but what do you think in terms of what's
You
on that recording?
you have a guess on what's on the recording about Charlotte's plane?
Yeah,
Okay. Um,
it's not
Boy,
a.
I
Go ahead.
no, I was thinking it was, oh, this is just, it was more of a they're hearing sounds of people dying, crashing, but no, I think there must be something more than that if I think about it. And now I put sort of finger to if it's just her plane specifically, what happened to her? Boy, I don't know what that might have been.
Yeah, I know neither. My guess really is that what they heard is what we saw in episode one. Um,
Hmm, okay.
and then that's it. At least maybe that's just a story I'm telling myself, like maybe there was more on the recording and it'll come out later. Because that's what I was hoping for. I was hoping for more information. But then I
Yeah.
realized, well, this is one possibility is that they're not playing it for us because they don't need to, because we already saw and heard. Oh, and we actually know more than Daniel and Helen do because we saw it on the screen.
Yeah. Planes crashing, bodies burning, people have to jump out.
Black goo in the pot in the cockpit, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Is anyone describing or stating what they are seeing and what it is doing? I mean, we have to come back to that mystery of what is that goo eventually. And so maybe there's some evidence there. That's why the people want it so badly. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I recall they're talking back and forth, and you said co-pilot in the summary, by the way, and I did realize we talked about it
Oh,
before. Like, there's another little nitpick. Actually, sorry, I didn't notice it before we started recording, but they're in separate planes, right? So it was one of
that's
the other
right. That's
pilots on the
right.
mission. But we hear them talking to each other on their comms back in episode one, um, about how there's this weird cloud and the altitude of it or whatever.
Hmm.
And then I think they make some comments about the goo being inside their cockpits. I don't remember exactly what they're like exactly. Um, but everything going to hell pretty quickly, and we see planes catch on fire and everything. So like I'm actually more curious about how Charlotte even survived and what happened to her immediately after. And I don't know if that would be on the flight recording, but at least for the moment, I'm imagining what Daniel and Helen heard was, the panic, the screaming, the terror, and then some of those other details as well would probably be sufficient in order to explain the reaction, is what I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do wish we had heard it. They made such a
Yeah.
big deal about how you don't want to listen to this. You know, okay, maybe at some point we will, but that just really obviously maybe wanted to hear it a lot more.
Yeah, it's an interesting narrative choice, and maybe my deflationary interpretation is wrong, and there is something further there that's really going to be shocking
Yeah,
or whatever. And I guess I kind of hope so, but then
yeah,
another part of me feels like, well, if there is, why didn't they just give it to us now? Like, come on,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know? Um, a couple other things I want to mention here. This guy, quote unquote, Steve, wants to copy Daniel's congressional badge. And I forgot to do more research about what, I don't know. I guess I wasn't even aware that representatives in the House had badges, but I guess it would be like, what, to enter the building or something? Like, I don't know what these
Yeah,
things
he wants.
do.
I don't know why this guy would want access to that building, but that seems to be what it is. Let me have your badge so I can duplicate it in some way.
Yeah, that's kind of a big thing to give up.
Yeah, it is.
Although, I don't know, maybe if you're Daniel, he knows enough to say, well, like, okay, well, then I guess later I'll go and try to figure out how to get a replacement one so that that copy will no longer work or
Yeah.
something. Maybe he's telling himself that kind of story. Regardless, when they turn around and decide, no, we need to get that tape, people need to know. And I think he means like the people when he talks about the people he works for, and says, I don't mean the creeps in the dark rooms or whatever, But when they get there, the place has been tossed, it's trashed. Steve is gone.
Yeah.
Um, and again, have a guess about who did this, but what do you think?
Is it related to this other question I have, which is who's this other mystery guy that we don't, we have no idea who he is. He just keeps popping up in random places at the same time as Daniel and Helen. I think it has to be related to that.
Yeah, I think it absolutely has to be related to that. And the broad answer would be, the government, the deep state, whatever terms you want to use, those muckety mucks in power,
Yeah.
like they got Helen fired. You think that they aren't tracking Helen and Daniel? You think they don't know where
Yeah.
they're going?
Exactly.
No, I mean they've got eyes on them. Charlotte was right to be paranoid, at least along these lines. Although that still kind of bothers me. I don't even know if I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but that whole first time we meet Charlotte, where she's super paranoid, and it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
then you met your brother on a bench in a park and didn't tell him anything. Anyway, they are doing something here, right? Trying to find information from the dark web and everything. So yeah, that's my presumption. That those powers that be
Yeah.
then moved in, ransacked the place, and took Steve and either took that tape or destroyed it.
Yeah.
Um, Probably they took it. I don't know. And yeah, we'll see where we go from there. Any further thoughts about the guy that keeps showing up, as you put it? It's interesting in my, because I'm writing about the show too. In particular, I'm taking notes as I
Yeah.
watch it, and I was looking at it as we were preparing for the podcast, and my note just said like gray-haired guy keeps showing up in background, or something like this,
Yeah, exactly.
at a particular moment. This is the same guy keeps showing up. Who's that guy?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there is an answer if we looked at a cast list, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
He will become more a part of the narrative at some point here. I am
Yeah.
confident. Yeah.
Certainly.
Any more
I
thoughts
think
on?
I think it must be, and I'll use this as a moment to say, and this is not any kind of spoiler or anything. We're pretty far away from what happens in the book in this timeline. A
Interesting.
lot of this is a sort of just creative measures here that we're taking. I think that with some characters that we have seen and some that we haven't, it can circle back to where we need to go. But I'll be interested to see how it happens. We're sort of out in the waters of things that are not really in the text. So I'm curious to see where it goes.
Interesting. Yeah. To this point, I'm just kind of viewing whoever this old guy is as analogous to like the cigarette smoking man in the
Yeah.
X-Files or something at this point. He's not smoking cigarettes, but he could be. Narratively, it would work. He's only not
Right.
smoking cigarettes because it's 2026. You know what I mean? Um, but let's see. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. I remain really curious again, not just about how all of this leads to the creation of the silos and why. Where it's funny, Ryan, where the starting point of armed conflict with Iran is maybe oddly doing it for me less than
Hmm.
it would have before the US and the real world in 2026 was involved in an armed conflict with
Yeah,
Iran.
that's right.
It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
It could get weirder. I'll just say it could get weirder, and obviously this text and this probably this season were written before a lot of current events, but there's some interesting similarities.
right, and I mean, like, it makes perfect sense. Like, I mean, Iran's been out there as a potential kind of like, well,
Yeah,
bugaboo foe on the world stage. I mean, you can go back to 2008. John McCain was,
yeah,
singing "Bomb, Bomb, 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 Iran," which is disgusting and offensive in my mind. But anyway, I think about that often. But so like, I get why they do the story. It's just kind of odd, and I don't know. That it might feel like almost a tangent. I don't want to get too political or anything, but like, if even like the surface level. So if the first question is why the silos, and at something like a surface level, the answer is, oh, a war that becomes catastrophic or has the risk of doing so, like nuclear winter sort of thing.
yeah.
Like, this would be like the Fallout type of scenario, right? Um, that's not really what I'm most curious about. So I'm hoping we get some more answers too. Okay, but like, why exactly this? Why exactly this sort of political structure within the silos? Why the safeguard procedure, right?
Hmm.
Like, that's particularly weird. The silos aren't allowed to know about one another. I'd at least already inferred that. Algorithm makes
Yeah,
it explicit in this episode to Camille that for one silo to learn about the existence of another, that would trigger the safeguard immediately.
yeah.
Why? What's all of this about? You know?
I think if we circle back to some of the things that some of the question or answers to these questions that are in the book. There's some very interesting places that it can go, and some very, I think, satisfactory answers to what you're wanting to know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's good. So again, Ryan's read some of the books and he did it to himself. Now he has to withhold. He has to. So
Yeah.
I guess that does put the onus on me because I haven't read the books at all. That if we're going to engage in any wild speculation, it's going to have to be for me here, just because like on the off chance, that I'm right or something, then Ryan will have to like be impassive or. But like a couple of things I mentioned, one possibility I continue to think about is the idea that it's all some elaborate social experiment. I find myself continuing to play with the idea that, well, the immediate area outside the silos might in fact be poisonous, as we know the world at large is fine.
Uh-huh.
Um, with the black goo in the plains, this comes from someone else, actually. I don't know if you ever watched this YouTuber at all, Miscellaneous Gab. I'll give her a shout out. I kind of enjoy her videos. She was speculating something about whether the goo means aliens. I don't know. I don't really think so, but I guess it's possible. Black goo often means aliens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it continues to stick in my mind that when we talk about a silo, it's usually a term that we use to refer to a place where you store food. Are the people in the silo food somehow?
Mhm.
Is a question that is still on my mind. Food for whom? Zombie cannibals?
All interesting theories. All
Extraterrestrials?
interesting theories.
See, I don't. Yeah, I do it more as questions than theories. I know some people like spin out
Yeah.
more elaborate theories, but like I do that to some degree. But my approach tends to be like spinning out. I've looked.
Yeah.
It's interesting over the years. I'll do this in other shows I write about, and sometimes I'll look back at them in the middle of something where I like spin out some series of questions into a theory
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
sorts.
Yeah.
And like at this point, I'm looking back and I'm like, well, that was completely off base. So, but it's fun. It's part of the fun here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anything else we need to hit on in this one before we wrap up?
I think we've about covered it. This was good.
Yeah. So far, so good. We're on to episode 4 next week. Hopefully, you'll join us. In the meantime, please do check out tvobsessive.com. You can find written work on all sorts of TV shows there. I'm writing on this season of South. I'm going to read my recaps. Ryan is writing on House of the Dragon at the moment, week to week. I'm also writing on Sugar. We also have covers right now on Cape Fear. What else? Rick and Morty. And, we also have some stuff hitting on older TV. We mix in and all that kind of stuff. So do check out the website. You want to follow us on social media. If you search for TV Obsessive, you should find us pretty much wherever you're doing the social medias. Blue Sky, for what it's worth, is the one where we're probably going to be the most active, I think, moving forward. But, regardless, we're still on the other ones. And yeah, thanks as always for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, please do leave us a good rating, review, all the good stuff. If you're on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. And we'll be back next week, continuing to talk about Silo.
All right. We will see you then.